everybody, in today's video I talk about the importance of shutter speed and how we can use shutter speed to give us different creative effects for our photos and also to help us capture the moments. So I'm just lining up another shot which I'm sending out into the distance. Now I'll show you what I'm looking at in a second. Generally speaking, with this type of shot I prefer actually to get some foreground in, but unfortunately there's a fence right in the foreground which is making that kind of difficult to see. So let me just show you what I'm looking at here. So if I zoom out there, there's a fence right at the bottom of the shot. So what I've done is really zoomed right in, and it's more of a minimalist shot in this sense. But what I'm also doing though is just waiting, and what I want to do is get some birds in the shot. Because it is still pretty dark, to get those birds flying across, I need a fast enough shutter speed. Now, they don't have to be perfectly in focus because they're quite far in the distance. But if it's too slow, it's just going to blur, and that's going to actually have the opposite effect. It's really going to give that negative side of the photo. So what I'm doing here is on the back of the camera, I've actually got my lens down to 6.3, which is the lowest this particular lens can go, and I'm kind of zoomed into about 85mm on the lens. So I've got it down to 6.3, and I've increased the ISO up to 800. Now that gives me a shutter speed of about 1/100, which is going to be good enough. Now, because I've got nothing in the foreground, it doesn't really matter that I'm shooting at 6.3. Generally speaking, I prefer to shoot at f11, but really the focus is so far in the distance that this particular shot, it doesn't actually matter. So hopefully you can hear me over the roar of the water. Actually, the water is quite high here at the moment. So the water normally is just centrally through this piece that you can see here. But at the moment, you can see it's both sides. So I'm experimenting with shutter speeds again on this one. I'm going to increase the ISO, get some faster shutter speeds to try and capture the water almost in real time. Again, because it's quite dark though, I do need to increase that ISO quite a lot. But the other thing I'm going to do is just slow down the shutter speed. So decrease the ISO, probably down to ISO 100. And what I've also done is put a polarizing filter on the front of my lens. Now I do have an ND filter, which also does the same thing, but it's not that bright at the moment. So a polarizing filter is going to be enough just to really slow down that shutter speed and get a different effect on the water. I've actually come to a different part of the reservoir. I'm a little bit late in the morning now, it's a bit bright, but again, I'm just trying to really do some long exposure shots. So you can see on the front of the camera here that I've got the ND filter on now because it's definitely, if anything, probably slightly too bright. But I think I can still get some nice shots here with the ND. Now what I've done is put my camera into timer mode, because then I can just kind of count up the number of seconds that I want this shot to take. So yeah, as I said, slightly too late to be doing this. Maybe an hour ago would have been better, but I still think I can get something here that's going to show you the results of slowing this down. So whenever I do timer mode, I always just do ISO 100 down to like f11. In fact, I think on this shot I might go down to f13. Might get a bit of diffraction, but I think it will just help me so that the sky doesn't get blown out on that. And I just normally count on the timer and just take a few shots and see which works best without overexposing. So for one of these shots, I have the same problem that I had before. There's nothing actually in the foreground that's going to let me obtain some depth. It's literally a barrier, you can probably see just over my shoulder here, and then it goes straight down. So I'm sending the camera into the distance. In fact, let me just show you on the screen what I'm looking at. What I have got though is this ball, this buoy that's in the reservoir. So I'm actually going to use that. Firstly, because I think it looks good, because it's actually in line with the tree that's right in the distance. But secondly, and more importantly, it's just going to give me that depth to this particular shot. And I really think this shot is going to work so much better in black and white as well. So just working on a shot here, which is, you know, it's quite a nice shot. There's a heron just sitting out on the water there, and you've got some really nice reflections on this. It's pretty still conditions. So for this shot, I've just gone back to f11, ISO 100. It's given me a shutter speed of 1/1.6, but that's perfectly fine because the heron is stationary. I've been standing here for about 5 minutes, doing a little bit of filming of the birds, trying to capture them flying over, and the heron hasn't moved. Every now and again, a bird goes across in the background, but again, you know, my focus on this shot is really the heron, and because that hasn't moved, I can really just use my standard kind of procedure for this shot. I've got my camera on a tripod, so I normally do a 2-second delay, and just take the shot under those kind of normal f11 ISO 100 conditions. So it's great to be back out doing photography again. I haven't been out for a couple of weeks. As always, thank you for watching and see you next time.